Something just resurfaced around the New England Patriots that many people thought was already dead and buried. And now it's right back in front of us like nothing ever left. For a while, the idea of a major move involving A.J. Brown felt like one of those off-season rumors that fades away quietly. But now, there's real smoke again, and it's coming from multiple directions at the same time. Here's what's catching attention right now. There are growing reports suggesting that the Patriots and the Philadelphia Eagles have a kind of handshake agreement in place for a potential trade involving A.J. Brown. And the timing matters a lot here. This wouldn't be something happening immediately. The expectation tied to this rumor is that it would go down after June 1st, which is a key detail because it changes the financial situation for the Eagles. Moving him after that date would give Philadelphia more flexibility, and that alone makes this scenario more believable from a business standpoint. Now, if you've been following this closely, you already know the big debate here is about cost. The Patriots holding onto their first-round pick has been a major talking point, and for good reason. There's a strong belief that this team still needs to prioritize building pressure on the edge, and using that top pick to address the defense makes a lot of sense. Giving that up, especially in a year where impact defensive talent could be available, is not something everyone is comfortable with. But here's where it gets interesting. If this deal really is structured for after June 1st, that likely means we're not talking about the current draft's first-round pick anymore. Instead, it opens the door for future draft capital or possibly player involvement. And that's where things start to feel a little more real and a little more complicated at the same time. Because once you start talking about players being included, names come into the conversation. And one name that's been floating around is Kayshon Boutte. Losing a young receiver who has shown flashes and has been building chemistry with Maye is not something that would sit well with a lot of fans. And then you add in the context clues that keep piling up. This isn't just one isolated report. There have been multiple insiders and sources hinting at the same direction. On top of that, you've got moments like the interaction on the Dudes on Dudes podcast, where Julian Edelman makes a comment that leads to A.J. Brown reacting in a way that raises eyebrows. It might seem playful on the surface, but in the NFL, those little moments sometimes mean more than people think. There's also the broader situation with A.J. Brown himself. Reports suggest that he may be open to a change of scenery, and if that's true, it shifts the leverage slightly. If a player is ready to move on, teams start looking at maximizing value rather than forcing a situation that may not benefit the locker room long term. And if the Eagles reach that point, they're going to explore options seriously. What makes this even more fascinating is how the market around him has evolved. Other teams that were rumored to have interest have already made moves elsewhere. That potentially narrows the field and could leave the Patriots in a stronger position than expected if they truly are pursuing this aggressively. At the same time, you can't ignore what the Patriots have already done. Bringing in Kindle Vildor at cornerback may not be a headline-grabbing move, but it shows a clear effort to build depth in the secondary. With players like Christian Gonzalez and Marcus Jones already in place, adding experience and competition behind them strengthens a unit that could quietly become one of the more difficult groups to face. It's the kind of move that doesn't dominate headlines, but matters over the course of a long season. So now you step back and look at the full picture. You've got a team that is clearly trying to build something balanced, not just chasing star power, but also not shying away from big opportunities if they believe it elevates the roster. The idea of adding a true number one receiver like A.J. Brown is tempting, especially for a young quarterback who could benefit from that kind of presence. But the cost, the timing, and the long-term impact all have to line up perfectly. And that's where this situation sits right now. There's enough smoke to take it seriously, enough logic behind the timing to believe it's possible, and enough risk involved to keep the fan base divided. So the real question becomes this: based on everything you're seeing and hearing right now, do you believe this is actually heading toward becoming a reality? Or is this another case of off-season noise building up momentum before fading away again? And if you take that question one step further, you start to realize this isn't just about whether a trade happens or not, it's about what kind of team the Patriots are trying to become moving forward. Because pursuing a player like A.J. Brown is not a small low-risk decision. That's a statement move. That's an organization saying very clearly that they are ready to accelerate the process and put serious weapons around their quarterback. When you look at Maye's situation, it becomes even more relevant. Young quarterbacks develop faster when they have reliable high-level targets, and there's no question that A.J. Brown fits that profile. He's the kind of receiver who can change how defenses line up, who can create space not just for himself, but for everyone else on the field. That kind of presence can elevate an entire offense, not just statistically, but in terms of confidence and identity. But again, nothing comes without a price. And this is where the internal debate inside the fan base, and possibly even inside the organization, really takes shape. because if you're giving up future picks or a young player with potential, you're betting on the idea that this move puts you significantly closer to competing at a higher level. You're betting that the upside outweighs what you're losing. And let's not ignore the chemistry factor either. There's already been talk about the connection building between Drake Maye and some of the young receivers on this roster. Disrupting that by moving one of those pieces out in exchange for a proven star could go either way. On one hand, you're giving your quarterback a true number one option. On the other, you're reshaping a developing core that might have grown together over time. At the same time, the signals coming from different places keep making this feel less random and more intentional. When you see players reacting, when you hear insiders consistently pointing in the same direction, and when the financial structure actually makes sense after June 1st, it stops feeling like pure speculation. It starts to feel like something that's at least being seriously explored behind the scenes. And don't forget the Eagles' perspective in all of this. If they truly believe that moving on is the best path forward, they're going to look for the best possible return. Whether that's draft capital, a young player, or a mix of both. They're not going to let a talent like A.J. Brown go without getting significant value back. So if the Patriots are in this, they're in it knowing full well that the cost will reflect that. Meanwhile, the quieter moves like adding Kendall Vildor continue to show that this front office isn't neglecting the rest of the roster. Building depth, especially in the secondary, was a clear need, and addressing it with experienced players who already have familiarity with the coaching staff adds stability. It's the kind of move that complements bigger potential decisions, not replaces them. So now, everything starts to connect. You've got a team reinforcing its depth, possibly exploring a major offensive upgrade, and positioning itself in a way that suggests they're not just thinking about the long term, but also about making a noticeable jump sooner rather than later. And that brings us right back to the core of it all. If this move actually happens, it changes expectations immediately. It changes how defenses prepare for the Patriots. It changes how people view this team across the league. But if it doesn't happen, then all of this becomes part of the ongoing story of a team carefully building piece by piece, waiting for the right moment to strike. Because the more you sit with this, the more you realize this isn't just a yes or no situation. It's a fork in the road for the entire direction of the franchise. If the Patriots go ill on a move like this, they're signaling that the rebuild phase is shifting into something much more aggressive. They're no longer just collecting pieces and evaluating talent, they're actively trying to shape an identity that can compete right now. And think about how that impacts the locker room. Bringing in a player of A.J. Brown's caliber doesn't just affect the offense on Sundays, it changes the standard inside the building. It raises expectations in meetings, in practice, in preparation. Younger players see what a true elite receiver looks like day in and day out. That kind of influence can speed up development across the board, especially for a young quarterback who's still learning how to command an NFL offense. At the same time, you have to be honest about the pressure that comes with it. If this deal happens, the narrative around the Patriots changes instantly. There's no more they're rebuilding. Give it time. The conversation becomes, are they ready to win? And with that comes scrutiny. Every game, every decision, every performance from the offense gets evaluated through a different lens. And that's why the timing matters so much. Post-June 1st doesn't just make financial sense for the Eagles, it also aligns with a moment where the Patriots would already have their current draft class in place. That means they could make this move knowing exactly what they've added, what gaps still exist, and how a player like A.J. Brown would fit into that structure. It becomes a calculated decision, not a reaction. You also can't ignore how this could reshape the offensive scheme. A true number one receiver opens up the playbook in ways that are hard to replicate. It gives flexibility in play calling, forces defenses to adjust coverage, and creates opportunities for other weapons to step into more favorable situations. Suddenly, players who were facing top coverage might find themselves with more space, more one-on-one matchups, and more chances to produce. But again, there's that other side. The cost isn't just about what you give up, it's about what you don't get to add in the future. Draft picks represent opportunities, cheap contracts, long-term flexibility. Moving those assets means you're committing to a different strategy, one that leans more on proven talent than potential. And that's why this entire situation feels so important. It's not just a rumor for the sake of headlines, it's a scenario that forces you to think about what you want this team to be. Do you want them to stay patient, build through the draft, develop young talent, and grow organically? Or do you want them to take a calculated risk, bring in a proven star, and try to accelerate the timeline? Because if the reports, the hints, the reactions, and the timing all end up pointing to the same outcome, then this could be one of those moments we look back on later and say, that's when everything changed. So now it really comes down to this. If you're in that front office, knowing everything we've talked about, knowing the risks, the rewards, and the direction this could take the team, are you pulling the trigger on this deal or not? And here's the part that makes this even more intense. Because while everyone is focused on whether the trade actually happens, there's a bigger layer underneath that not enough people are talking about. Even if this deal never becomes official, the fact that the Patriots are this heavily connected to a player like A.J. Brown tells you a lot about what they're actively trying to fix. For years, one of the biggest conversations around this team has been the lack of a true dominant presence at wide receiver, not just a solid option, not just depth, but someone defenses genuinely fear. And when you see consistent reports linking the Patriots to that level of talent, it's a clear sign that internally they recognize that gap and they're exploring ways to solve it in a serious way. Now imagine being inside that building right now. Coaches, front office, players, they all know these rumors are out there. They all understand what adding a player like that would mean. And whether they admit it publicly or not, it creates a certain level of anticipation. It puts everyone on notice. Because if a move like that happens, roles shift immediately. Targets change, expectations rise, and for the current receivers on the roster, this is where things get really interesting. Competition isn't just coming from within anymore. It could be coming in the form of an established star that either pushes players to elevate their game or forces tough decisions about who fits into the long-term plan and who doesn't. At the same time, the Patriots aren't operating in a vacuum. Other teams around the league are constantly adjusting, constantly improving. And if New England believes they're one major piece away from taking a real step forward, then passing on an opportunity like this could feel just as risky as making the move itself. That's what makes this such a delicate balance. It's not just about evaluating A.J. Brown as a player. Everyone already knows what he brings. It's about evaluating the timing, the roster, the trajectory of the team, and deciding whether this is the moment to act. And let's not overlook something else that's been quietly building throughout all of this. The Patriots have been making smaller, calculated moves to strengthen different areas of the roster. The addition of Kendall Vildor is a perfect example. It's not flashy, it's not headline material, but it reinforces depth, adds experience, and creates competition in a secondary that already has strong pieces in place. Moves like that matter because they show a level of discipline. They show that even while exploring bigger possibilities, the team isn't losing focus on the details. So when you connect everything together, it paints a picture of a team that's trying to be smart, but also isn't afraid to be bold if the right opportunity presents itself. That's a dangerous combination in a good way, because when discipline meets aggression at the right moment, that's when teams make real jumps. And now we're sitting here watching it unfold in real time. Every report, every hint, every reaction adds another layer to the story. And until something definitive happens, this is going to keep building, keep evolving, and keep the entire fan base locked in. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about one player. It's about identity, it's about direction, it's about whether the Patriots are ready to take that next step or if they're going to stay the course and trust the process they've already started. So keep your eyes on this, because one move, one decision could shift everything faster than anyone expects.